Hearing things is pretty brainless, right? Sound just comes and voila, we hear and understand the world around us. So how would it feel like to lose that functionality we take for granted? Listen up and enjoy as we take you through how do we make the deaf hear. Sound waves pass through a long journey before we can perceive it. Passing through the ear canal, they beat on the eardrum, which then vibrates small bones called the ossicles. These vibrations are sent to the cochlea and stimulate the tiny hairs inside, kind of like water flowing over seaweed. Signals from this hair flapping are sent to your brain via the auditory nerve. Unfortunately, things sometimes go wrong somewhere along this route. A damaged cochlea is one of the main causes of sensorineural hearing loss. In a healthy cochlea, all the hair-like stereocilia are waving nicely, and this converts into electrical pulses. When your precious cochlea starts balding, now suddenly there is much less hair flapping for the brain to pick up, and your hearing drops to a lot less. And so the cochlear implant was invented to replace the functions of a damaged cochlea. Sound is now picked up by a microphone worn behind the ear, which a speech processor attempts to translate. Remember him, he's an important guy. This translation is sent to a radio frequency receiver, which then stimulates an electrode array implanted within the cochlea, which acts as replacement hairs. Zapping different electrodes on this long thin piece of wire produces different sounds for the brain of the user. Stimulating this end produces a high sound, while stimulating the other end produces a nice low tone. Now remember that speech processor? So here's how the boffins back in the 80s decided to make it work. They called it F0, F1, F2. Now different sine waves at the same time can be superimposed on each other to produce a complicated squiggly wave, much like normal speech. These frequencies can then be plotted so that you can see how much of each frequency there is. Using a fancy technique known as linear predictive coding, we can extract the first two significant peaks F1 and F2 as an approximation of the whole sound. F0, the fundamental frequency or the pitch, is used to regulate the rate of stimulation. Lastly, we apply the magic of the vocoder, and poof, we get... that wasn't so good. Let's try something else. In the 1990s, Speak, which stands for spectral peak, was introduced. So how does it work? We first apply the discrete Fourier transform to see how much of each frequency we have. Next, we apply a series of bandpass filters to keep the bits that are within a given frequency band. To see what range of frequencies to use, let's first do some maths. The sampling frequency is 16,000 Hz. By the Nyquist-Shannon theorem, we need to sample a wave at least twice its frequency in order to reconstruct it. So dividing by 2, we get 8,000 Hz. This is known as the Nyquist frequency, which is the maximum frequency we can resolve to. We also have 16 electrodes in a cochlear implant, so we repeatedly take 8,000 divided by 16, which equals to 500 Hz bands, to analyze. We then select the top, say, 8 bands to produce our sound, by passing through the vocoder. Not bad. Speaking of Speak, there are some other filter bank strategies. Say hello to one of the newest strategies called CIS, or Continuous Interleave Sampling. The filtering is performed using a filter function such as Chebyshev for each 500 Hz band. We then apply full wave rectification and a low pass filter to extract the envelope signal that wraps around our wave. The amplitude of this is used to calculate how much current to deliver to the electrodes. As the name suggests, CIS stimulates electrodes non-simultaneously in separate pulse trains. This sound analysis often produces comprehensible sounds. Finally, here's the original sound.
The orange is very sweet.
To test which strategy fared better, we decided to do a study. Here's the first of our 4 subjects. Whoops, he's meant to be wearing clothes. Our 4 subjects, all have no hearing impairments and a good level of English understanding. A random selection of 33 sounds were taken and processed with the 3 strategies. This playlist was randomly played by a demonstrator who recorded the number of correctly identified sentences and words of each subject. Finally, the original sounds were played as a control. We found that F0, F1, F2 performed the worst, with the participants barely able to understand any words, while the filter bank strategies, Speak and CIS, delivered similar results and was a lot more comprehensible. Losing your hearing really sucks, but with these speech processing strategies, we are making significant gains in letting the deaf hear again. While it is nowhere near perfect and all strategies struggle with translating music, being able to have a conversation already greatly increases their quality of life. Cutting edge strategies such as ACE already show great promise, and who knows what the future of the bionic ear will be. We hope all that didn't go in one ear and out the other, and that you enjoyed listening to our presentation.